You had fun. The weekend was really good, right? It was absolutely good. I had fun. Went for a hike after a long time. Oh, we are broadcasting. Hello again. This is Jeevak. And don't worry, I was talking with my printer over there. I have my bookcase over here. I have some different plants over here. They are my friends. I am just now friends with them for the last 2.5 months and being actually having a relationship with them as we go forward as such. So this is our happy hour. Hopefully you are here with your happy drink. As we're talking about drinks, I have my coffee over here. By the way, I asked the members of my house to identify a coffee cup for me. So here it is what each and every one of them identified a coffee cup for me. So let me bring my amazing stage over here. I asked my wife, what would I have coffee in? She selected this one. Pretty nice. I love it. It's insulated, sleek, simple. I love it. I like it. Absolutely no problem. I asked my son, in 10.5 years, he chose this one for me. Captain America. Man, what else would go bad, right? Means he's completely, I would say, hypnotized by the Disney world, by the Marvel world, and maybe he wants me to be Captain America, or maybe he wants to grow up to be Captain America. And there's so many, it's pretty expensive cup. Marvel right there, just for that logo. It's good, it makes him happy, it makes me happy. I asked my daughter, she chose this one. There are dogs on it. By the way, she loves dogs and she wants them. We don't have one. I cannot afford one. I cannot even think about owning one. But she wants 5 dogs. She already has the 5 species selected. She's 8 years old right now. She also has the names of them selected. She said, "Don't worry, Dad. I will go and have my own dog." So she's very clear about her vision, what she wants, and that's how she selects things for me. But I chose for myself this kind of an mason jar, reusable things. Maybe we got jelly or jello or something in this. And it's a normal bottle, a glass bottle. There's just a handle over there. So you can use it as a coffee cup, tea cup, the orange juice cup as such. So the thing is, it's such a simplistic object, right? But no matter what, today my daughter gave me finally a Minnie Mouse cup right now with real coffee in it. Maybe she wants me to wear a tutu now and then. The things we have to do. The element is, it's not a simple product, right? It's a simple coffee cup. Means there are so many other levels and layers you can add into it, or what you want from it, what you think about it, and it can get pretty complex, pretty fast, pretty soon. Means the thing is, we talk about so many, I would say, forces in the world right now. I have never seen a Captain America eat an apple or a broccoli as such. I hope Disney or Marvel somehow understand the power they have and the young minds, me also and my son too, or any kid in the world, that if they see those guys and girls eat a little bit more healthy, I think it might change the way we look at it. So looking at anything, right, means it's the product part of it, it's the marketing part of it, the product part of it, the brand part of it, the recyclability part of it. There are so many elements to choose from, and this is just literally means what's the fundamental thing about a coffee cup? It should not leak, right? Means and then you can go bonkers with it. But there is a way and rhyme and reason of what you want to stand for yourself and what mark you want to do with your product as such. So we can talk about a little bit the health element too a little bit later, but let's try to hold that thought in mind. Before that, I think I have to address two important points on my mind. The highs and lows of this last month. Means last month we saw some of the worst points happening right now in America, right? Means we saw the death of George Floyd. Means as I think I said on Instagram too, means America right now is a state of mourning. It is sad to see how things are done, what happened, what are the repercussions of those things, and hopefully it's 2020. Finally, we should learn eventually and try to be a little bit more poignant in how we choose, what we choose, the purpose, the meaning, and the elements is going to cast upon civilization. Like we call it a civilization, has to be civil. So my really heart goes for the entire element. Means I think you might have seen the video. It's 9 minutes of agonizing video. If you have not, I think you owe to yourself to see it. A big guy, a strong guy like that, I think at the 7 or 8 minute, means he literally cries and says, "Mama, Mama." He's calling for his mom. He means, I know in this Hollywood world, in the video-centric world, we have been desensitized with this extra murders and gore. But even then, looking at that real time things happening and an amazing human being losing his life was really sad. It's the next few days were unbearable for me. That was really sad. But in the same element, we had the highs of civilization too, right? Means finally we saw SpaceX take off. Means after 2011, that's when we stopped doing, let's say, our US soil-based, US rocketry-based shuttle system delivery to the ISS, the International Space Station, and finally to these amazing commercial elements of one man's audacious vision to say, hey, we can do the Dragon heavy lift, we can bring the Dragon spacecraft on the Falcon out all over there to the ISS, and it happened. And it was pretty amazing to see it happen. It hopefully it uplifted a little bit morale of the entire country at that time, and it looks like there might be some hope in a different part of the world too. By the way, when the Dragon docked with the International Space Station, and it literally, I mean, it's pretty amazing thing to see how it docked. But the first thing I think the astronaut over there who was inside said, "He smells like a new car," and it makes sense, right? Means it was completely brand new interiors, maybe brand new leather also. I don't know what was the material for the cushions over there, but I can hear that. But that's what the first thing just abruptly comes out of any human mouth, right? But it's like he or she might have a scripted element to say and how to receive and do the welcoming ceremony, but the things that erupt out are pretty amazing. Neil Armstrong also said something different, not the scripted things that we were supposed to, which was completely okay. But the first thing that Neil Armstrong said was, "Hey, it feels exactly like what we did at Langley." So it was like, wow, it's something just comes out and you say about that. We're talking about the International Space Station and the Dragon docking each other. By the way, the docking looks so simple. We will come to the element of simplicity all the way towards the end of the hour too. Hopefully, we can complete all the things we have planned for discussion today. It's not simple to dock those things right out over there at that height. They're going at 18,000 miles. They both are going pretty fast, but it still has to be literally precision docking, and it happened. And by the way, for people who think, why do we invest in all those things in SpaceX and why not over here? You should know that the same algorithm, the same technology that uses for that docking is used for the LASIK eye surgery. Because your eye, retina, and the cornea, they're always moving ever so slightly, but so in such an fleeting manner that when you do the incisions, the electronic incisions on your corona, on your iris, have to be really following that fluctuations too. And the same telemetry over there is used over here too. So there is a rhyme and a reason why we all do those things, and why those also projects have to be, I would say, supported too. So talking about that element of how you juxtapose what we learned, let's say in the docking of an International Space Station to the eye surgery like that, that's essentially what we do in a design studio. Means I hope most of us on the chat know who we are. Sundberg-Ferar as such, we are a industrial design studio, the second longest one in the US at least, and been doing design for the last 86 years. But that's predominantly what we do. We try to cross-reference, cross-pollinate, cross-connect the things, the technologies, not only the technologies, but the behavior of people, the activities of people, the biases of people from so many elements together over there to understand what needs to happen. So it's not that difficult, but that's essentially the reason that we get to work with assortment of industries, right? Medical, mobility, housewares, artificial intelligence, wearables kind of an elements, faucets and bathrooms and elements and tools required in the basement. It's amazing in a good way. We're all over the place, but that's precisely the element of how you understand what people find meaning in, because meanings and purposefulness and the way you want to experience something is also always, I would say, in the world of solidarity, in the world of singularity. Then the attributes gets distributed differently to the different zones and the different domains that we live in. It might be making a cup of coffee, or it might be mowing your lawn, or it might be just working on your laptop laptop as such too. So I think, David, your video is on. If you want to just, yeah, we're good. That was our Chief Design Officer, Mr. David himself, as such. So that's typically what we do as a studio too, and we go on doing that. By the way, as a studio, we sincerely believe in good design is good business, and it goes pretty deep in our veins, right, or arteries, or in the DNA as such. So let's try to unpack the elements, right? When you say good design is good business, when you say design, again, and the products or the services or the solutions or the software, how do you derive the purpose of it or the success of it. And there are four basic pillars of any product. When I say product, it's an object. We all know that, or we should be knowing that. So there's always the hardware part of any object, right? With the actual physicality of it, the articulation, the visual architecture of it, where you hold, where you stuff, where you store, where you bring in, how you clean, all those things that we typically understand, and those typically would be the pain points. The second part in any object is always the HMI, the human machine interface on the object. It might be that screen on the washing machine. It might be elements of any object you are doing. And that has to be literally blended in, interacted with, or intersected with, or integrated with the way you work with the hardware too. Third part of that software element is the digital twin of it, how you gather the data, good data, and use it for the advancement of your next prototype, of your next product as such. How do you gain the dashboard behind, and also finally give it to the end user as such to see what's really happening, how it is getting used. If you have, let's say, a slow cooker in your backyard right now, and you know right now what's happening or what needs to happen, or let's say right now the storm is coming, right? Means today I think we will be getting some after effects over here in Michigan too. Like if you have the awning open right now, it's not going to take that kind of an effect. So on the background, if you know where all you have sold your awnings and how you can intimate or indicate those kind of an user to say like today is the time when you have to reel it in, or if it is mechanical, you can automatically reel it in. So you can try to use the digital twinning of it to a great effect, both good for the business and also good for the end user too. And the last part, the fourth part of any object world is the service part of it. And as a service, typically the serviceization of it. Nowadays, many companies in a very good way are trying to think of liberating their products in the part of a service, right? How you try to make sure you sell a service in a good way. So you're not loaded with any burden to take care of the product itself. You get always the latest thing. I want the latest thing over here. The company will take care of making sure you have the latest object on your driveway each and every year, and they take care of all the innovation process over there. Means I think Philips, the light company, they got the contract for Amsterdam Schiphol Airport, right? They do not now sell light bulbs to them. They sell the lighting to them. It always has to be so much luminous or luminosity, and that's it. They take care of all the maintenance, light bulbs and inventory and newer ways of trying to save energy and all those things. And that's a pretty interesting way to look at it. So even if you are a product design company, you may want to understand and see how you can try to leverage that. So we talk about good design. The design has this four kind of fundamental pillars. Talking about the good business part of it, that is pretty interesting. Means we always think about only the three pillars, like the design for desirability, the emotional part of it, the looks part of it, the aesthetics, the usability, usefulness part of it, the ergonomics part of it. And the second one is the design for feasibility. No matter what, your product has to be feasible. It has to follow the laws of physics. So as a studio, we have both the duality of industrial design and engineering right there joined at the hip. So it has to be designed for manufacture, for distribution, for storage, and the rest of the elements are over there. We always know the third one, design for viability. The business. Business need not be a bad word. People sometimes associate a business means as bad as Enron or something like that. No, anybody down the street making a good, honest earning out of a cupcake factory or something, they're also doing their business. You are having a lemonade stall and your subdivision, it's a small business. So nothing wrong with that business aspect of it, but as long as the business has to be viable for what it stands for, you have to make sure you understand that. So these are the three things that we always know. There are two other things always we have to see there. One is the element of the sustainability. And now more than ever, we know how important the sustainability is there for the biosphere around, right? When we talk about any element, like a plastic bottle going down, a single-use plastic or reusable plastics or pure virgin materials or elements like that, how we really understand that and how companies really now need to put their best foot forward and try to see how they can ingrain that, right? Means I think a few months ago, the CEO of Unilever announced pretty boldly that he will dispose of brands who are not talking about that meaningfulness and sustainable future. And that's, Unilever is a pretty big billion-dollar giant in the FMCG community as such too. So hopefully bigger companies like that, if they take on that kind of a challenge, it might be eventually beneficial for other smaller companies to go and jump on that bandwagon, because till 2-3 months ago before the pandemic, it was pretty difficult or pretty expensive to think of going green. But I think somehow we have to think about how it's affecting the biosphere, the climate, the desertification, the soil change, the weather change. There's so many things over there too. And the fifth part in the business part is literally the element of society. We always talk about the end user. There is never a single end user. It will always be a multi-users. And those multi-users collectively are the part of the society or the fabric we are from. And how what we do is going to affect the systemic elements, right? Means you're using, let's say, chemicals on the lawn, how it's going to affect the river drain water and eventually come back to harm you or feed you. And some of them might be, as people say, just theories, or some of them might be conspiracies. I personally have nothing hard data to refute them. But the things that we use somehow have a systemic effect on us. Means the COVID-19, as bad as it is, it quickly lets each and every person on this earth, 7.6 billion, know how we are connected, interconnected with each other, and how we just are marooned in our houses because of something that can go drastically wrong overnight or over months as such. So those five things come from the business part of it. So we saw the four basic pillars of design, good design. We saw the five basic parts of good business. But coming back to the word good, right? It's there twice. Good design is good business. What do we mean by good? It's means yeah, we can go to Merriam-Webster dictionary, best resource by the way. But I did a small experiment. I think I must have talked with you, David or Linnea. I literally went and bought 10, 12 items, elements of snacks. My kids are 8.5 and 10.5, and just had an array of items just in a big basket in front of them. I have taken photographs of it, and maybe eventually I can add that in the recordings or after the recordings. And they range from apples and broccoli and cheese snacks and small, I would say, the 3-in-1 snacks with the cheese, the nuts, and the meats are there, till donuts and Twinkies and other ones too. And just had them all over there. Some extremely healthy and good, some extremely bad. And literally asked both of them independently just to sort them from the good or the best over here and the worst over there. They're not trained for anything. They were just like, okay, small little men and women. I was surprisingly, both of them, I'm not saying because they're just my kids, you can try it at your home. Actually, you should do it. It will just completely make you happy to see, if not you, the kids know exactly. They might still be eating chips. I'm not denying that. My kids still eat chips. At least they try to meter them pretty nicely. I think so. They might have some hidden stash somewhere in their room too. But the way they align, like, yeah, Apple goes all the way over there, and the Twinkies, yeah, all the way over there, multi-grain bread and normal white bread. They don't know exactly what it stands for, but in the nomenclature from good to bad, they exactly knew where it takes place. So understanding goodness is not that difficult. Everybody knows what is good for them, what is good for society, what is good for the climate, what is good for the overall civilization as such. They might not be having all the chances or the choices to select them, but now the future will belong to those small, I would say, sub zones, not a simple mega production commodity as such. No, it can be small, it can be fragmented, but everybody will stand to be a little bit more distinct, more unique, more compelling. It is okay to be polarized. And the reason I'm saying that is we can also do another experiment too. I cannot do all of those things. We're talking about having something over here, right? Let's say I want to have juice. Let's say I want to have an orange juice. So think about right now for a minute, what will be the different ways that you are used to drinking an orange juice or you want to drink an orange juice. When we talk about goodness now, right? We talked about business, product. Let's talk about the good part of it and try to see how we can ricochet or balance it with the entire spider graphs that we usually do for any design. So what I would do is, or my wife or the kids will do it, get crates of this from Costco, cut them, squeeze them, and have the best, literally refreshing orange juice ever. On weekends, we do that. It takes time, and eventually I dilute them and give it to the kids. But it's fun. But now think about the other options that any person can have in orange juice, right? We have seen this example. It's not something that I did. Or you can have an 1 gallon plastic jug you can buy. You can have a half a gallon paper carton jug, I would say, or carton to have. You can have a single-use plastic bottle for 600 milliliters that you can drink. You can have a little bit expensive one in glass, a single-use glass bottle that you can drink and just buy it from somewhere or just have in stock at your home. Or you can just get concentrate. the frozen concentrate, or you can just have the powder concentrate that doesn't need refrigeration. There are so many options in front of you. But now coming back to, let's say, the elements of how you would add to the attributes of design. Let's talk about, let's say, one of them, the five elements of business, right? Sustainability was one of them. Now, out of this, which would be sustainable? This is the healthiest part. Is it sustainable? Is the carbon footprint makes sense to transport such a huge quantity of water and the peelings, or let's say trash, organic trash or rubbish, unless you have a compost bin in the backyard? Does it make sense? Or what is the best option from the world of sustainability, or the less amount of carbon footprint or offset you might have that might eventually go into the world of concentrate? So it's so good design is good business always happens with the context. You cannot just say this is the best coffee cup ever. You have to understand the context, understand the user, understand what facilities you have if you want to really recycle this, or is your systems around you ready for that. So making sure we understand and triangulate those things together starts the journey of any object design. And somehow we do that from the world of innovation strategy, another kind of a service that we have. And we will not talk about this is not a sales pitch. We'll not talk about that, but that's how we typically try to unpeel the things. Okay, now really let's go and start to ask the right questions and try to see what do you want to stand for, and is it going to be accessible or addressable or acceptable by the society as we know it. Because it's your product doesn't have to have always the amazing weight of any brand that you can control as such. Your brand can be dismantled overnight by social media. It has happened. Big brands or smaller brands have just been washed off because they did not understand or did not pay intentional, careful way to understand those elements. And eventually you can come out and stand up for something and say, this is what we are here for. McDonald's, okay, they're there for convenience. Necessarily, they do not say it is the most healthiest option. So there are rhymes and reason when you want to go and make a quick pit stop and grab something and go forward over with it. So that's typically the way we'll try to understand about the underlying principles of how we act or try to act. When we had our last, I would say, Tonight show, we did a couple of top 10 things, and somehow in the Q&A or the feedback that I'm getting, I always get feedback about what would be the top 10 things for, keep the top 10 things, and try to let us know what the top 10 things are. So today also, I think I have Minnie Mouse. I have some top 10 things. And this time, I think there was a question that I really was thinking pretty hard about that. It was about what were some of the things I would try to put it top 10. Like people say that, hey, have you been to this exotic country or India or Costa Rica? And was there a culture shock over there in the same way? The question was like, what was my kind of an, not cultural shock, but surprising or insights, like something different, like, dang, what is that? What were those things for me when I first came here, or maybe along the path of the last 19 years as such? So today's top 10 should be something like that. The first one was I really saw was the element or the entire culture of garage sale. It was completely new to me. I love it, by the way. It means the first formative parts of my life. I'm so glad I did the garage sales as such, because first, it saves money, both for the buyer and for the seller too, right? It's a perfect way if you think from the recyclability, from the repurposeness, from the reuse kind of a thing. It's the best thing to happen, and you get immediate cash with the things that might be junk for you, or you might maybe upgrading. You can actually make some money out of it. But the best part is, and that's where I think the designerly thinking comes into the element of understanding what you would really go there for. So as a designer, every designer in fact is a part of researcher. They're always curious, right? But going to an garage sale, more predominantly an estate sale, I still do that. I love doing that because it gives you an amazing introspective view of how that family lives. Means as design studio, we normally work with clients to understand how they're using or misusing the snowblower, how they're doing this, how they're doing that. So we still go out to the households of people on the point of origin or the use and try to understand what things are there. But that's specifically for a client. But on the meantime, typically whenever you see a sign like that, just go in. You'll be received by those couples they're pretty, means in a way they are want to sell you things, but the way they literally take you through their living rooms, their bedrooms, their kitchen, they open all the cabinets and you can see all the crockery over there, and you can understand how they live their life. Means you can finally buy things from them. And actually, this was what I bought from my first or second months of garage sale as such. It's a railroad spike. It's actually from north of Michigan. And it talks about the quarrying culture over there. I got it for 25 cents. It's literally indestructible. Even though I go right now anywhere I can buy it, I can buy it for 10 bucks or something. So not only that, it tells you about what things that couple or that family loved, right? I just did it recently, literally 2 weeks ago. The couple was going to Hawaii. I said, oh, they want to go to Hawaii, but they had the house on sale. You can literally see how that demographics, that person, that couple, that family, those kids lived. What did they buy? What did they throw away? What was the junk in their basements? So that understanding of what garage sale was the best thing to happen to me when I came over here. I think that's not a culture in India, or as far as I know, it should be started from over there. That was the first thing. The second one was, should I go line-wise, or should I just try to upscale something else here and there? The second one was pretty interesting. I think it's a simple one, but the change of metric scale, the imperial scale, when I came over here, my God, that was difficult to understand. Like the inches and the pounds and yards, and I was in the world of liters and meters and grams, right? Means I do not know why it's not completely commonized. It's used over here, right? Means you have a nice bottle of wine, 750 milliliters of fine red. It's all metrics, but somehow it's not catching up everywhere. The drug industry, I'm not saying I have any first-hand experience of that, but if you want to buy something off the street, it all comes in kilos and grams. They have adapted metric system, but maybe not the rest of it. I mean, like, the main difference was I knew what an inch is, but when people start to talk about, like, yeah, go through a 3/16 of an inch, like, what? Why? What? 3/16? Eventually you understand. It's simple mathematics, an inch and 16 kind of lines on it, and you go with only 1, 2, or 3, and so you can go 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, not 4/16. Then it becomes 1/8. It's complex, by the way. I think the sooner the entire world comes on one system, it will be good. It will work really, really wonders. But that's the second thing too. The third thing, which still gets me as an industrial designer, is the 2x4s. I think some of you might know what it is. A 2x4 is not a 2x4. So 2x4 is basically is 2 inches by 4 inches, right? Means in my first couple of months, I wanted to build a shelf system for our apartment. Means we had a single 1-bedroom apartment, and there was only so much space. And finally, my wife found something in an area where she can expand her pantry. I said, yeah, I can build you a small shelf which can just fit nicely in, so we can remove it, so we will not forfeit our deposit and all those things. Did a nice model in Alias. Literally, I knew the measurements, did the exact things, and bought lumber. And then I came. Not that it changed my design. Yeah, it doesn't look good as I would have thought in my mind. But why do we sell it still as a 2x4? It is not. It is 1.5 inch by 2.5 inch, 3.5 inch. It's means I know the reason is people say, like, yeah, the rough stock is 2x4, and then you plane it over. But how can you expect that from any other industry? You want to buy 1 kilo or one, let's say, bar of chocolate. They don't shave it off and say, hey, it was really good in the earlier part of process, but you will only get this. That's not acceptable. I think it's simple to change, right? It's not that we're changing just the name of Pluto and just saying, yeah, we are going to reclassify it. Just make sure we sell 2x4 as 2x4s are. I know it's not going to happen, but that was my kind of an element to see, like, why we are selling things which we know. The buyer knows it's not 2x4, the seller knows it's not 2x4, and it just goes astray from that. The fourth thing was sports. I think last time I talked a little bit about baseball, which was pretty good. But the one sport that hit me like an hammer in the face was bowling. See, I was in India, I was used to soccer, trail running. I'm not saying cricket because I was not a cricket guy. A field hockey, they were all like, you go there, you sweat it out, you literally, it's a pretty physical sport, right? But that's what I thought always sports was. First time when I think in the first company I was, we had our happy hour session, we went to a bowling arena, and I'd heard about bowling, I'd thought about bowling, I'd seen it in the movies, but actually doing it for the first time, I was like, still appalled by. I know I might be making most of you bowling people disgruntled right now, but think about it. It's a 13, 14, 15, 16-pound ball, and you just put three fingers on it, like one of the most unergonomic conditions ever on this planet. It's such a heavy ball. You put your ends of fingers and then throw them down a slippery way and then do some weird angle at the end, or at least show off at the end as such. And then it goes over there. The sticks, pins, sorry, I'm so sorry. The pins fall. You don't even go there to get the pins erect. The machine takes care of it. It's just an automated machine. The robots are not taking over right now. The robots took over in 70s and 80s when the bowling machines became hit. But not just that. Now see the duality of it. The most unergonomic things. And by the way, now think about the pandemic and COVID. Are you going to put your fingers in those three holes? I don't know. We'll talk about more about that. But that's the weirdest part. But then it takes care of you. Like the ball, you don't have to go there retrieve the ball. Like in the cricket, you have to run and go and get the ball. Over here, the ball comes back to you. It's not only comes back to you, it comes at your arm height. It comes up on the things and it's right there. So it's still that designer had or the inventor had the idea of, let's say, ergonomics, but it was not in the design of the actual ball thingy as such. And the other thing was like, what a sport it is. You go order beer. First you order beer, then nachos, and then you start playing. You throw one ball, then you pause for a moment, you have some cheese nachos. That was, as a sport, that literally shook me. My son likes bowling a little bit because just as we have the daddy daughter dance, they have the son mother bowling elements as such. So that was pretty amazing to see. The next one was, I think, the bigness that we are always, now I'm an American citizen, and that we are associated with the biggest and the longest and the tallest kind of a thing, right? Everything where I started to go, everybody was advertising that we are the biggest store. You just go north from over here, Frankenmuth, we are the biggest store for this and this and this. Then I went to, it was Washington, D.C. They had the same store, but they said they're the biggest in the US. So that kind of a thing of, we have to the biggest or the largest or the, like even good institutions. Like, talk about zoos. I love zoos. Every year we go to N number of zoos. This year we could not. Let's go in the central Midwest. We have Jack Hanna Zoo, right? The Columbus Zoo. Beautiful zoo. They say they are the biggest. San Diego over there, they say they are the biggest. Now, when you try to read the fine point, then you can see like one zoo says, we are the biggest because we are the largest number of species as compared to that zoo. But that zoo says, but we have the largest number of animals than this zoo. This zoo says, no, we have the largest confined spaces per animal, per capita against that zoo. So I think somehow, somewhere, the bigness part is a part of the culture, and somehow the marketing people think it just has to be that particular way, right? Means that big thing goes every day in the morning. By the way, I still get emails like, hey, you want to be big? Enlargement. I don't know if I'm the only guy or they think I need some help, but it's you start the day by deleting your junk mail and spam mail, and you always see like, hey, you want this? So the bigness is from the zoo, from a store, from a mall, from a slide, a water slide, or from the other parts of, I would say, the male anatomy too. So we can talk about that bigness somewhere else. By the way, other smaller things that literally were I think we are number 6 right now, was the element of blind spot. Means right now over here we understand the blind spots, and you try to adjust your mirrors accordingly, and then you look over and then do the lane changes and all those things. That was completely different behavior for me. I was on a two-wheeler back in India. Over there is no concept of blind spot, because driving is an act of martial arts. You are sitting over there, you are continuously looking all the way around, because anybody comes from anywhere. There is not a small zone where only people will be hidden. People, vehicles, cyclists, scooterists, anyone, pedestrians, they will fall from a tree. Not that it happened with me, but it has happened everywhere. So the blind spot was a pretty big thing as such for me. There's another one that literally happened in, I think, 2-3 months. I need to write a small pamphlet of what happened in the first formative years of me. I distinctly remember this. Means it was again the same apartment where we were building the shelves as such. I like gardening. I still now in my house I have a nice vegetable garden, the box garden. But over there, I was trying to just add whatever you can do in the outside of your apartment, right? We're on the ground floor, trying to add some tulips and all those things. So we were both outside. She was having coffee. I was over there and I was working or tilling the ground. Simple case. By the way, I know I'm being vulnerable over here. This was literally 19 years ago, fresh off the boat from India. It was an afternoon, right? Spring, summery time kind of thing. Not tulips, right? It was something else. It was pretty hot. So I had in India, we don't call it a wife beater. Over here, I don't know why we call it a wife beater. It's the inner shirt, which is sleeveless. Those white shirts, sleeveless. In India, we call it the banyan. Those are called here the wife beater. I still don't know why. Maybe I should try to really understand why. But I was wearing that and shorts, and I was just laying in the dirt. The other neighbor over there, he comes out for something, and he just looks at me, and he was a normal neighbor. By the way, talking about neighbors, we can talk about later about that, but it was just hi and bye, right? Kind of a neighbor. We did not literally ever were brothers or something. But he just comes out over there and just makes a remark at me. Hey, wife beater. Can you imagine the fury, the anger? I had a small garden tool in my hand. I'm glad I'm not an angry man. I was angry, but man, I would have jumped at him with that tool and literally beaten him up. I did not do that. I just like I was furious. My wife was still there. She was furious. I mean, I think I was furious because she would have gotten up and beaten him off completely. But the way he was telling the mannerism, we're talking about the context, right? It's not just the product. Coming back to sustainability, talking about any product, it's not the material that is just sustainable. It's the process has to be sustainable too. In the same way over here, he said something, he blurred out something, but the mannerisms and everything was so casual. It was so matter of the fact that I knew he said wife beater. I knew I was angry, but I still knew like I should now ask him what does he mean by it. And then eventually it came out like, oh, but again, now it's like, why? Why do those things happen? And I do not know. Many people should have fought over this. I should have fought over that. Maybe he would have understood that if I had slapped him but he was a pretty big guy. That was pretty remarkable. And small things happen each and every time. I think I told you last time too. It's you just have to be open and curious for that, and that's what I think. And not because I am, but I think that's an attribute of any designers as such. Like they're always curious, inquisitive, trying to go behind, try to ask more questions. I'm like, why did you address that way? Can you help me better understand what you said? All those things just comes with the way you go forward too, right? That was maybe 7. Number 8, we can go as long as we want. I don't know, I should do a time check too. Other thing was I really think we should make a petition for this is the lawn mowers. I think every subdivision should vote for a time that this is the time they would not allow to be your lawn mower. First of all, lawn mower industry guys, you should design lawns which are completely quiet. Means remember, imagine the car industry. 100 years ago, those were noise-making machines. Now, a big truck and any big rugged vehicle, noiseless. So engines can be designed with and can be cladded to make it completely quiet as such. So I think that's first for the lawn mowing industry. And the second is, I think the city or maybe the subdivision should think, and I try to do that with subdivision, no help over there. But there has to be some quiet, tranquil days. I think last time our friend John Arthur, he told that in Europe, there are rules or regulations where there are times where it's completely peaceful for the entire neighborhood or something. I would like that. 9, if we want to do the 9 part, the 9 top 9 was about some of the systemic things which are so amazingly simple but so amazingly strong that whoever did that did not knew how amazing they were. It can be as complex as the NPS, the National Park Services. It's such a strategic move to withhold large tracts of land to safeguard them as a part of the eternity of our generations to come, right? Means Yosemite or Grand Canyon or any other big national parks. There are many more national parks than those amazingly names that we always hear. Michigan has 3 parks. There are large tracts of oceans right now who are designed or designated as national parks. So that entire element of thinking beyond the generations, right? Just like Isaac Asimov said, think beyond 500 years. And there are elements like that. You can see the faith in humanity where people made a point of that and made sure they were petitioned through, I would say, the legislation, and then they finally made it happen. By the way, Teddy Roosevelt, he was a pretty big one in making sure those things were done in a very good way. By the way, I think help me correct here if I might be wrong. Hopefully, I'm not. The president did not have an executive order to do the bills of saving large tracts of land for a park because of the logging industry lobby and everything else. But the presidents had the executive order or that they can do in declaring national monuments. So that's what he did. There was 10, 15 days in between where something would have happened. He declared the entire Grand Canyon as a monument and saved it till the bill came into action, and then it became a national park services. So I think it's not just the willpower of the people, it's also depends on the governance and the leader who also understands why we're taking care of that. So that simplicity of action, it's just trust based on paper, like we are not going to log it, it's just going to be there for eternity. But soon things happen everywhere in some of the main planners of the USA, like the highway system. All the north to south highways are odd numbered. All the east to west highways are even numbered. Even things like that just tells you about the way you can approach something in a structured way. So you are, let's say, on a passenger side, and you are sleeping, and you suddenly see the name of the expressway. If it is odd, you know you're going up or down. You still have to see you're going north or south, but at least you know you're at, say, longitude, latitude, or at longitude too. That's those things. Like even let's say you come to a hotel room or your house in your subdivision. Everybody, even houses on this side, or the odd numbers are on this side. It's simple. Even the sprinkler guy that came the first time in our house, when he was setting everything else, he said, "Yeah, what's the number of your house?" I said, "Yeah, it's an even or odd." I said, "Even." He said, "Okay, I will plan it for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, not the other one where the others will be on." So some of these kind of systemic things does make understand the meaningfulness and the purpose about how to distribute the water load also around for that. The last one was pretty interesting. The top 10 one, we are almost at 3:15. I should hurry up a little bit. Was pretty interesting. One of my first kid was born about 10 years ago. I was happy. She was happy. The kid was healthy. That's all we want, right? We were in the hospital in the Viewmont, a 13-mile and Woodward. I was there, means, yeah, it was a C-section, so we were going to be there for 2-3 days more or something. So I was always there in the room, right, with my wife, with the baby as such. And finally, on the third day or something, I was out to get some ice cream or something. It was ice cream. They were actually giving free ice cream, so I think that's why I went to get the free ice cream. And I remembered that. So next time when I was there for my daughter, I took my son with me to get the free ice cream. So when I was out for that, at that time, she, a social worker from the hospital, literally creeped in the room. I was not there. My wife was alone over there, and asked my wife. It was an interview kind of a thing. I think that's what they do for all, hopefully all the let's say females, and asked her like, "Hey, how are things in the house? Is everything okay? Do you need any help? Do you think you are pregnant? Did you feel anything? Do you think the baby will cause no harm to you, or no harm from the dad also?" So it was like my wife was saying like, "Yeah, everything is okay," but he said like, "That's the policy that we do in our hospital. We try to make sure we go and touch every new mother and try to ask her about our things about not just postpartum symptoms, but about the safety of the house system based on how the males behave in this house." And it tells a different part. Means we know things of battery and abuse happens a lot, but then in a systemic level there are smaller checkpoints. And if there was a couple there where the guy was really bad and he was there with the wife and they found out from her like, "Yeah, I think I could see something," they will then help that lady as they go forward. So I think some of those things in a systemic way are so simple but so amazingly placed so that they can really help the society. So there are many of them, at least just the top 10 that came to the mind. Let me know in your feedback if some of them gel with you or something else that I must have missed. But at least for me, coming from a completely different societal, cultural kind of an elements over here, I was unearthing some really gems of what the entire system is built of. We have time. I was thinking whether I should share a story of like last time, I think when I shared the story of Karali, of the Hungarian sharpshooter. I think somehow it gelled with some of the audience, and they said, "Is there any other story that might help?" So I can tell you a story about what I did for a last startup entrepreneurs webinar, not webinar, meeting that I had done. It's a story about, it's a real life story. I will try to be a little bit faster in this. It's a real life story. It's actually called, the story is on a person called the Mountain Man. This happened back in India. His name is Manji, Manjhi. There is a movie on him also, amazing movie. It has subtitles. It's Mountain Man. That guy was born in 1930s. This story actually happened in the 60s. He was a imagine India, imagine 60s or 50s, really those times. This guy was an extremely poor guy, a normal laborer guy. He used to work earlier in his life in coal mines, literally simplistic person, a small hut, a small village, and that's it. Like the element where they lived, his village was literally no access of roads, no bus service, no hospitals, nothing. Simply the smallest village and the poorest of man. I think after the coal mines, he came back to his village and was doing his own agricultural things. And typically, the guy goes early in the morning, tries to till the land. In the lunchtime, the wife brings him food, and they sit under a tree and they eat it. As simple as it is. And one day, she tripped and she fell, and she injured herself really bad. And means, as I said, there was no road access from them to the nearest city. So by the way, this is a small village. There's a big city over here. The way to go there was through literally a deer walk, and that was around 70 kilometers across a mountain. And there was a mountain in between, a hillock, a pretty big cliff of igneous rocks, like really steep. But they could not. It was just 2-3 kilometers as the crow flies, but around 70 kilometers to go around. He could not help his wife. His wife died that day because they could not take her to the hospital on time. And that literally broke that guy. But he made a pact. He said, I have lost my dear ones. I have seen how painful it is. He loved his village. I do not want my village or any other person to go with the pain that I am going. So he made a pact that day that he will make a path through the mountain. He will destroy the mountain, create a path through it. People thought it was a weird, absolutely crazy idea, but he started doing it. An extremely poor laborer guy, literally wearing dhotis that you have seen Mahatma Gandhi wear, that kind of a guy, only a hammer, only a chisel, he started working. Every day he did not do anything else. Every day, every late evening, sometimes in nights too, he just came to the cliff, the hill, the big wall, the mountain, and started hacking it bit by bit. Not one day, not 1 month, not 1 year. Means after a few years, people said he's completely crazy. They laughed at him, they ridiculed him, they consoled him, they called him a madman. They still took care of him, they fed him every day. But every morning, afternoon, evening, he would just go there and with a hammer and a chisel start making a passageway. Not 10 years, not 20 years, 22 years he did this. And finally, he made a road through the mountain. Not a single tier path, 30 feet wide, 25 feet tall, and the length through the mountain rock was more than a football field, 120 yards. It's amazing to see that tenacity of how he had his vision, and he did that. Means eventually he was praised, and the road was built, and then the political people found a way of how to add more bus routes and services over there. But a single man can make a difference. And it all goes back to the world of entrepreneurship, right? Means how you think about what you need to do, how much tenacity you have, how much love you have in what you want to do. And then you try to exhaust your resources to making sure how your product, how your service, how your solution is really going to be useful and used. So everybody has $1 million idea Everybody should have, excuse me, a couple of $1 million ideas. But then how you make sure you go through it. And here it was in one man show, but if you don't have the resources, if you just have an idea, how you go around and talk with people. It can be design studio, it can be, I don't know, it can be anybody else too. It doesn't have to be our studio, but try to make sure you get help and go to the next elements as such too. So in the maybe in the feedback to the recording, I can send you the link to the movie, and you can see that movie if you are interested in watching it. It's a real life movie, but the movie is a pretty interesting movie. So we still have 10 minutes left. There are a couple of more elements that we can still talk about as such too, and those typically are going to be about what I said in the start. We talked about the word simple. It's not that simple, right? So people always think the opposite of simple. Is it being complex or it is being complicated? So simplicity sometimes can be straightforward, right? Means just take a knife here. A knife, open, close, a single blade. You know what it is. You can make it work. That's an American bench made knife. Nice clip point, titanium handle, blue analyze, locking in, locking out. It's a pretty interesting knife. I love this. I collect knives. It's as simple as if you take it to any part in the world, people will look at it, they will understand what it is. It's simple. I would say the product is simple. Look at the other end as such. Let's say, look at this. I think most of you might have seen this BB-8, Star Wars. It's a toy right now, but the mechanism, by the way, you've seen it move, right? This entire lower part, I can play with it right now, but this particular thing is magnetized over here. This completely revolves like a ball. There is very complex telemetry inside, complex algorithms inside, self-balancing, self-running. Even the interface, I was playing with this all the way. A simple remote that the kid will have it on his hand, and this particular guy will follow him or route the path and all those things. It's complex inside. Complex is not that bad. Doing it as a studio when you're working with something, the interiors, the insides, would be complex, but the external, the interface of it, the way you derive the benefit of it, your gamification and joyfulness, that can be simple. A 7-year-old kid can play literally amazingly for a few hours continuously with this particular one. So the act of use has to be simple. When a pretty big CEO always comes and talks about something like, hey, we want to make everything simple. Not necessarily inside. The inside can still be complex. You are the one who take care of that. We are the ones as design and engineers. We make sure that we understand that. Like we can do all the robotics and the cuts inside in the studio too. But how it manifests itself to the world, to the users, the multi-users, that has to be the simple. So that would be, I would say, in the product or physical product world, the difference between simple for use, simple for understanding what it is, simple for making it in a way, means when I say simple is relative, it's pretty still good technology, versus here where you can break out different parts which would be simple and which would be complex. But the third part is, means I hope that the part is of making sure is of the complexity. I think I just went to my garage and took a photo. I want to show you things. I'm sorry if this is your company. This is a sprinkler system in my house. This is one of the most complicated systems ever. Not even rocket scientists from SpaceX can decipher that. Every year, I think I told in my first thing, I'm morbidly afraid of doing that. That is complicated. Even the instruction manual is complicated. So simplicity would be, it's all in the context, right? Means I think Evan Carpenter, one of our designers, he explained this pretty nicely in the last VDC that we had. So opposite of simple can be complex, but if not be complicated, where the complexity of it is okay to have as long as we understand the context. Let's say most of us have heard about Photoshop. Some of us use it for the last 20, 30 years. It is, if you look at it, it's pretty complex, but the context of it, the structure is always there. And then you have literally at your disposal 50, 60 icons at you at every time. For a third person, that will be utterly complex. But if you are grown into that, your mental models have been aligned, you can actually sometimes design your own interface over there. That is not complex. That is still simple because the structure helps you in understanding what it is. Versus complexity where you are still going to go with the example I showed on the phone of how complex it's going to be no matter what, even if you draw your cheat sheets or something like that. So that particular element has to be attested or thought of when you really start designing or understanding what you need to solve over there. So simple, complex, and complicated. Sometimes in the world of semantics, the complex and the complex and complicated becomes interchanged, but they're not interchangeable. Maybe one more last point is somehow I'm afraid people sometimes talks about a new normal. And by the way, we will be talking about new normal and other topics in our next VDC, the virtual design conversations. We have 4 speakers from 4 different industries as such, but Kurt will talk about the new normal. And we can talk about a new normal at that time. But before that also, 2-3 months ago, when we talk about the AI, the world of suggestion and kind of an, hey, if you buy this, would you want to buy this also? Or if you bought this on Amazon, the other people suggested this. That suggestiveness is somehow limiting. Means again, this is in my opinion. You literally go exactly where you want. Like I would just go and say, hey Siri, tell me this, and this. And, oh, sorry, hey Siri, she started. And she will start answering me literally exactly. And that's in a way good to save time, but you have to think about what's happening and what's not happening. Last time, again, I am not old, but I was in India, so I was in a longer, different time, I would say timeline than over here. In my house, we had Encyclopedia Britannica, both the volumes, the smaller kids ones and the larger ones. And my mom used to send us over there if we had any questions. Not that she did not have answers, but she wanted to find the answers, and it took an hour to find an answer. Not because it was not difficult to find, but because if you go to that particular page, as you're going through, you are, I think, intentionally stopped by some amazing things on photos and elements over there. It's like, oh, I wanted to go and find what architecture is, but I find something else over there. And you start to learn that and you glean more things from that, right? Same thing with the dictionary, right? Right now, you can just go to Merriam and try to write a word. It will autocorrect it. It will give it a meaning. But if you go to the old world dictionaries, you will still take time to find the meaning of that word. But on the way over there, you'll stumble onto different things. So the thing is, in this world, we don't have time to do that. Means it's sad to say, but people don't do that. But then in the same thing, if you attach that kind of a mental model to the world of innovation and invention, it's happening there too. If you are in a company, no matter what, it will always, when I say company means the domain, you will always try to be, because of the functional fixation, looking at one thing and you want an answer for that. And it might that's one more reason why people come to us, because we intentionally go around in different rabbit holes by the way we are built, right? Today we are working with the household industry. Tomorrow we are working with not even tomorrow. At the same time, you're working with an tools industry. Same time working in the motivated industry. Same time with an medical product industry, with a big company, with a small, I would say, startup entrepreneur. So we are in our, let's say, methodology, are always going down different rabbit holes each and every day and getting out information, cleaning out information, try to siphon it, saying, oh, this is good, this is bad, this is otherwise. And then that helps us understand, okay, what is the general consensus? What is the general sentiments happening right now? What is the sensitivity level over there? And then you never share secrets between companies, never ever. But then you understand what are the needs over there, the attributes, the wants, the desires, the dreams of the collectivity as such. And that somehow helps the studio a lot. Means that's the reason I think we are designers and we love what we do. And that's what we do in the studio to try to make sure as much as possible, try to connect and cross-reference elements that we need from other from other worlds, and help you as potential clients to increase the learning curve, or make a hockey stick kind of a learning thing to make sure we can bring solutions to your world. And as you know, we can go on and on and on, but it's 3:30. I think this is a happy hour. My coffee is completely cold right now, but I will reheat it. I will not take it for granted. But let's try to make sure, keep me sending your questions about what might be the next 10 things. I would love to answer. You know, I'm pretty open and honest and authentic, a little bit too honest in telling some things, but we can do that. If there are any other questions that we need to ask or solve, we can do that over here. So this session is predominantly for light kind of a discussions, happy hour kind of a thing. So we keep it in that kind of a tonality. But our next, after a couple of weeks, we have our 4th episode of VDC, the virtual design conversations. And that will be more, a little bit more serious, more business elements. We have one person from FCA, we have one person from Ford, we have one person from Stryker, and we have one person from Sundberg-Ferar. So we will try to have an amazing discussions, amazing insights, gleaning from every industry, and try to see what we can learn from them. So if not here, we will meet you. I think Alania is sending the links to all of you in the chat box also. Apart from that, we'll try to make sure we send you the links to it as a recordings of this one also. I'm so paranoid these are all going to be recorded, but it is what it is. Anyway, let me know your questions, what we should take for the next session next month. But see you then in the midweek of the mid time of next month too. Thank you and enjoy your summer till then.